Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Spell, and I'm here with company dancers Amanda Morgan and Cecilia Iliesiu. And we are going to talk about the wellness program. But I thought we would first start just with some introductions. So, Cecilia, I'm going to go to you.
Sure. Hi, and welcome to our chat today. My name is Cecilia, but everyone calls me Cece. I have been at PNB for 6 seasons, and I became a soloist this year. I previously danced at Carolina Ballet for 6 seasons and was a soloist there. I'm sorry, I'm working backwards in my life. And I was born and raised in New York City and trained at the School of American Ballet for 10 years. So it's been quite a journey, and I feel so grateful to be here today chatting with these two amazing humans. And yeah, I'll pass it over to Amanda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Morgan. I am originally from Tacoma, Washington. I came to the PNB School when I was 14, so 2011 now. And then went through the school, got into PD, was in the professional division for 2 years, joined the company in 2016, so this will now be my 5th season, I believe, and my 5th year as a core member. And Josh, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing you say that, Amanda, that you came in 2011. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was 2011.
That's when I retired from PNB, so 10 years ago. But I was, yes, in the company for 10 years, and also danced with the Kansas City Ballet. And now I'm coming back. This is my first year to be the consulting therapist for the PNB School. And it kind of brings us to this whole conversation. But also, like Cece, I studied at School of American Ballet. I'm originally from Texas. And yeah, we wanted to just talk about the origins of the wellness program first, just to kind of like put into perspective, yeah, like how this all started. And so, anyone who's listening, you may have more knowledge than I do, but this is my understanding is that Francia Russell, who was one of the original co-founding directors, also the director of the school, she invited Toby Diamond, who was a psychologist, to come and talk to some of the students. So my understanding is maybe the upper levels had these seminars, just to kind of talk about things that were happening to them. And so that's kind of where things started. And she was actually with the school for about 30 years. And along the way, Peggy Swistak was the dietitian slash nutritionist. I'm not sure what title she used at that point. But she came along. And so we did have this team in place. But I think as the years have really changed, there has been more emphasis on normalizing mental health, normalizing dancers as people, right? So, kind of like the mentoring program that you all have is really also helping to initiate that piece. And so, while there's always been a program, I don't know if you all feel this way, but I think there's been a shift in the dance world, which also in turn has created this shift at PNB. So, Amanda, I don't know if you want to talk about your noticings because this has been a really big year this past year.
Yeah, very big year. And we're still kind of like on the other end. We're getting to the other end of it. Like, thank like the universe, but like, whoo, it's been a year. I would say, well, how about I just start with kind of like my experience in the school, just like what led to us creating this program, kind of like in the present now. So basically, I was in the school from level 7 all the way to PD. So that's like 5 years of schooling. And at that time, we were able to talk to Toby Diamond. We were able to talk to Peggy. We had a couple seminars here and there, but I noticed sometimes there are times that, you know, as a student, you're not always heard. It's a lot about being kind of told what to do. You just kind of go through the routine, and then once you're kind of in PD, you get a little bit more of like that communication between your teachers, between faculty, all of that. But I knew, especially as a Black student, it was very isolating at times. I was the only, Black woman in my class at times. And I felt like no one understood what I was going through. I couldn't talk about it with anyone. I know other colleagues of mine felt that in different ways, whether it was body image or puberty, things like that were just like not normal to talk about. So I basically in an EDI committee meeting in November of 2019, I told everyone, I was like, hey, I think we should start a mentorship program. And I think we should like have company dancers like talk to students and just like be able to mentor them, be there for them. Because I was fortunate enough, I had Lindsay and Carell very much like they mentored me, like kind of like late PD, my first year in the company as an apprentice. And I'm like still so grateful for it. And so like, and then Cece also helped me as a PD as well. So like those little moments that like we don't always think that they matter, like they really do like matter. And they've stuck with me till like my career now. So after November happens, pandemic hits pretty soon after in late February, early March. And before that time, I'd already asked Cece to join me in like creating this program because she's just a superstar. She's great, like has been a great mentor to me. Great person to everyone, always supportive, always like knowing, like in the know about everything. And I think that's really important in doing like any work like this. And so we guess we kind of reconvened. She was like, hey, like let's try to like start this now in the pandemic. And
yeah, it literally honestly was an afternoon, and we had been kind of laid off from PNB. It was for 2 weeks at the time, and then it just, now we know what the last year has been for us. But yeah, I was just sitting at home and I was like, Amanda, if we're struggling as professional dancers, like what are these students going through? And we'd like had initial meetings about starting the mentorship program, but we were super busy. There were a lot of things going on in the organization. We were like, we'll put it on pause. And then COVID hit, we had kind of nothing to do. And I was like, Amanda, let's just do it. And luckily Peter Bull and Denise Bolstad, the director of the PNB School, said like they gave us the green light, and we started with the PDs 1 week, and then the next week we added level 8s, and the week after that we added the level 7s, and now the level 6, and then the men. So it's just kind of been a growing, literally the end of 2020 school year. But yeah, Amanda, continue.
No, I mean, it's kind of like crazy that we were able to do all of that, especially in such a like insane time. I remember the last calls we were finishing up was like around during the George Floyd protests. So there was one call that we were saying bye to them, and I was like, bye, I'm going to protest now. Like, so, and everything that we were all talking about, we were experiencing in real time together, in like a historic moment. Whether that was protesting, whether that was like what was just going on in the world and pandemic wise. So I'm happy that we were able to, I don't think we could have started it any other way, to be honest. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I have to say, like, I can't not think that these are connected, right? In terms of like Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the pandemic, as well as just sort of other things that are happening in terms of us not having the same access to normalcy or connection. And I think that this has really catapulted the dance world. Maybe I like to use that fantastical thinking of catapulted, but sometimes the dance world, I would say, is a little slow moving. But I think in this past year, it has just kind of like moved quite a bit. The needle has been moved around normalizing these conversations, and not just in the dance world, but outside. And so having these options for students to be able to talk about real life concerns real life issues, I think is just like incredible. And I think the way I want to just share how I got involved with Amanda and Cece is we were kind of like doing our own thing, right? Like on our own islands. And then all of a sudden we were like, wait a second, why are we separate? Like all of these things are interconnected. And a lot of the topics that I was approaching in sort of the mental health seminars, Cece and Amanda were also talking about them in the mentoring chats. And I feel like that really bolsters a program and the access that dancers have to have like all of us here being able to have these conversations and having these like outlets and these resources available. So I guess I'm curious. I want to know, like, what have you all done? Like, what are some of the topics that you've approached?
Yeah, so we have the way that we structured our mentorship, and I think you've done this as well, Josh. I think some maybe topics have overlapped, but for the mentorship calls, we meet with 3 levels. We've combined the level 6s and 7s, the level 8s, and the advanced and intermediate men, and then the PDs. So we meet with 3 groups once a month. And we pick a new topic every month. So we've covered topics, and Amanda, fill in if I miss anything. Finding your identity as a dancer, dealing with self-confidence and self-doubt, how to prep for audition season. Super stressful and just nice to have someone as like a guiding light, hopefully. What it's like to be a company member and what that feels like. And this month we're talking about cross training as we go into the summer, and how do you deal with injuries and how do you take care of your body. And I think one of the most important ones was body image, and just how do we talk about that just as a conversation instead of a lecture form? How do we talk about our experiences and share it with the students? But Amanda, is there anything that you want to fill in that I missed?
No, I mean, I think you covered all the topics that we did, which like, wow, that's a lot of topics. I can't believe you did all that. But I would say, in addition to all these topics of talking with the students about these things, we'd bring in guests for the last 30 minutes of the calls, just to give another perspective of someone from the company. And it was always like insightful, I mean, for the students, yes, but also for us, because sometimes we don't always like know fully, like, you know, what our coworkers have gone through, or their experiences, you know, as a student or as a dancer. So it's been like eye-opening and great all around.
Yeah. And flip side to Josh, what have you covered this year and how have your sessions gone?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think that's some of the beauty of being able to have these 2 different perspectives, because I also have done body image, but I'm like approaching it in kind of this from a theoretical lens. And I guess it would be helpful if I actually explained like how I got into the consulting therapist role.
Yeah.
So when I left the dance world, I went back to school and I got my undergrad in social work, and then I got my master's in social work. So I'm currently a clinical social worker and work with eating disorders. I've also worked in a generalized mental health clinic, so doing just more comprehensive mental health, depression, anxiety, PTSD, so trauma, things like that. And so that's really kind of informed how I'm sitting here today. So I have my experience as a dancer, but there are also some things that I can't just share in the same way that Amanda and Cece can. And I think that's been a really interesting part of like sharing my experience as a dancer, because that's what brought me here. I didn't feel like I had a lot of resources at the School of American Ballet to know why maybe I was putting pressure on myself or not feeling confident to say something that I needed, or to ask like, wait, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, why didn't I get casted? And instead of like speaking up, I just held it in. And so it became very clear that this was missing. But I didn't know that this was possible for me to be like a dance therapist. But again, I think that that's what has opened up in the pandemic is this need, because there's always sort of this silver lining, in the chaos. What I see that has come out as this way of speaking about mental health in a less stigmatized way, and actually just recognizing that dancers are people, right? First and foremost. And we also struggle with everyday concerns. It's not just what you see on the stage, which also is amazing to have that. But when we get to talk about these other topics, like you all have mentioned, it makes just a more holistic, whole human. So yes, a self-doubt and learning how to use self-compassion really to approach some of the negative thoughts that we hold. That's something that I've worked on. Perfectionism, communication style. So how to use our voice, right? We as dancers use our body so much, but we often don't have these conversations. And so that's something that I think is really important, being able to voice your needs to teachers, to, peers, just with yourself. Identity, like you all mentioned, body image. What else have I done? Self-care, like just the different ways of, like approaching just what you need. Vulnerability is something that we've kind of opened up. But I think what I have noticed is as we've progressed through the year, we've been able to get deeper into some of these conversations, which to me is just such a reflection of the possibility and of where things can go. I don't know, have you all felt like that?
I think just one thing I wanted to add based on everything you just said that was so amazing is relating it back to like this PNB is listening series, and that you listen to yourself, and we have all listened to ourselves as students. And what do we wish we had? We are listening to the students now in the flesh, and kind of relating it back to the school. We are having meetings with the director of the school and Denise and Peter, and they're listening to us and the needs of the students. And it's just this like beautiful circle of listening and being open to what can change and what we can bring to the table and adapt the dance world to be. And I think that's just been so incredible. And to answer your question, Josh, like just the amount of vulnerability the students have had since the beginning of the year. Also, how's it been a whole school year already? I have no idea, but it's amazing how much we've covered and just how much closer we feel to the students. The students feel so much closer to us to reach out with any problems more privately and group setting. So that's been an incredible shift, and just seeing how in a short year, how the mentality of the students have really changed just by having us as guiding lights. But yeah, Amanda, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say like just the level of comfort that the students have when even like seeing a company member pop, like a guest company member pop on now, like just knowing, like them knowing that all of us are people as well, right? Because I don't know if all of you as students, when you looked up to people at New York City Ballet or whatever, it's like for me at PNB, I would like run and hide from like company members because I was like, I cannot let them see me. I was like, so like just in awe with every single company member, like. And a lot of my friends were like that too. And we'd all be like, oh no, he saw you run. Like, or like, like things like that. And you would feel like you couldn't talk to them. And so it's nice to see how comfortable the students are just like realizing like, oh yeah, like they're just people like anyone else. Cause that's how it is in real life.
I definitely put dancers on a pedestal, right? And it was almost like this illusion that they just knew automatically how to do it all. Yeah. How to be a dancer, how to be a human, how to deal and cope with everything. And so I think that's what's so awesome about just being able to connect and hear, all of our experiences, but I'm a little bit further removed. So it's like, I don't know, three degrees of separation at this point. But it's so cool. Yeah, like I love that you mentioned that, Amanda.
But even also in a year where we feel so disconnected, that we have found a way to connect, I think is also what's so powerful about kind of the transition of this last year is like we were given this like blank slate of no one really knows what they're doing and how to deal with a pandemic. And I just feel really honored that we were able to step into this legacy of a wellness program and just help shape it dependent on like how the students need us during this time, and that we're coming from so many different perspectives and trainings and backgrounds and race and ethnicity and just all these things were coming in and just like being a family in a way that like if we didn't, everyone just be on their own probably struggling. And so we're at least unified in our struggle to hopefully come out better.
Yeah. What have you all learned from the students, from the dancers?
Well, one thing I was going to say before learning from the students is I've learned, especially in the pandemic, right? We were limited with what we could do, but with kind of limits of like when you don't have access to a whole bunch of resources, you don't have a whole bunch of things, you can kind of create new programs, new things out of that. It forces you to be creative. It allows like, I don't know, a different way of approaching something that people might have never thought of before. So I think it's important to mention that for people in other ballet companies or ballet schools that are like, oh, I don't know how to do this. It's like, you don't need that much to do it. It's really just, you need to have the people that are willing to do it and that care about, this work and care about changing the culture of dance and listening to the students. And it doesn't take that much, really.
Well, we didn't know what we were doing either. I don't know about you all. I didn't know what I was doing.
No, I mean, I think I'll speak for myself, but this was the first program that we've created and ran together. So it's definitely a learning curve, but I feel so much more informed and like ready to like attack a new year with like so much more passion and confidence, like knowing what we're doing. But we'll get into like the future of what we're going to do next school year moving forward. But let's go back to the question of like, what have you learned from the students?
Yeah, I think in my case, at least, what I've learned is like, students have so many insightful thoughts to bring and insightful ideas. Like they think so, they're just so open-minded. They're kind of like, they absorb everything and they're so open-minded. And it's taught me a lot, just as a choreographer, as a dancer, as a person, just like walking on the street, like how they take in everything. And they're so disciplined too, which is something ballet dancers really, people always talk about it, but it's so true. Ballet dancers are so disciplined. They give up so much to do what they love at such a young age. And sometimes that forces us to mature more. And so it's been nice to see them also be like, I'm going to like go on a hike with my family. I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go hang out with my friends, and seeing like that aspect be more normalized too. And them being able to talk about that. So yeah. What about you, Cece?
I was just thinking, like, I've adored all of our conversations. I almost we always go over the hour because I'm like, oh, I just want to hang out with you all. You're so amazing. But it's nice to, now that I've been a professional for 12 years, to kind of step back in the student's shoes a little bit and just realize how passionate these individuals are for what they do. And most of them have been dancing at home for almost the entire year and only now have access to the studio. And how, I don't think someone just walking down the street understands just how much passion and dedication you need to force yourself to do pirouettes in your kitchen and train every single day. And I'm honestly just so inspired by the students. And after those calls, I'm like, I do work hard, but I'm like, I should work harder because these students just are nailing life, and they probably don't feel like they are, but they just are. And I'm just in such awe of them. So I've learned to take the perspective of a student in the way that I don't think I have in the last 12 years. And it's really refreshing to have a different perspective and really feel like I'm part of their lives and hopefully guiding them, but also learning from them and like having that perspective of like, what was I like 15 years ago? So I hope that kind of answers the question. But Josh, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just witnessing the resilience that each dancer has brought. I mean, when you're talking about pirouetting in your kitchen, I'm like, I don't even know how you all have done it as dancers because I'm just thinking about like, wow, I don't know if I would have been able to withstand that. And then thinking about training in a school, right? And to continue that. But I think what I just love about doing these seminars is the fresh perspective, right? It's like the new ideas on something kind of you alluded to this, Amanda, with like identity and having a little bit more balance in place. And so even coming to some of the seminars with my own thoughts, but then realizing that, oh yeah, well, I'm a few generations, like ahead of them, and my experience was different. And I think seeing the possibility is just so inspiring. And seeing like, hey, we can talk about depression, right? Or we can talk about emotions. We can actually include emotions in dance. And I've seen these dancers come alive with experiencing their emotions on so many levels, right? So being able to say, like, this is really hard, but then also being able to celebrate the things that are going well. And it makes me think about like what you said, Cece, like when I was 16 at SAB, I don't know if I had access to any of that. So it just is such a breath of fresh air to kind of see the possibility of moving the dance world into a new direction. And I just love that.
Yeah. And listening to like how it needs to change and adapt, I think is like the coolest thing.
Yep. Yep.
And another point to add too is like, for all of us that like things were different when we were younger, going into now being older, having more positions of power, like we don't have to have things stay the same in order for it to adhere to tradition or whatever. Kids don't need to, feel silenced or not have voices just because the generations before them experienced that. We should continuously be growing. So I think Josh's program, especially our program, is like creating space to do that. And that feels, I mean, for me, it has been the most full circle moment in my entire dance career, even growing up in the school and dancing in the company. It's not that it feels full circle, but it's really the fact that like me being a student, I like saw kind of what that was like. And then to be able to provide something or take that experience and make it different, for the future, I think everyone should try to do something in a way, whether it's, regarding to anything.
So I guess like what's our plan for the next school year and moving forward? I'd love for both of you to answer that question, and I can too, but.
Yeah, I can start us off. I think kind of we have talked about this a little bit outside of this context, but how we do want to really unite our programs in the wellness sort of umbrella, but also just in PNB in general, right? So really connecting the company and the school and also the administrative staff and being able to just be one organization, because I think that makes us more just connected and more, it makes us stronger if we're united just as an organization. And so I really see that creating these other opportunities for dancers in the school to have a different experience. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. I don't know who else wants to go.
I think one aspect that Cece and I are adding to our program is we're going to add more mentors. So a couple, or I guess like maybe a few more mentors to just Cece and I. It's been just Cece and I. So I think it will be great to have more perspectives. And then we'll be meeting with Josh, monthly to kind of just go over all these ideas and like converse about these topics ourselves before we even, speak with the students. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, because I've used Josh as a mentor, honestly. Like, I feel like it's like this like trickle down, because definitely. Cece, what about you?
No, I mean, I think it's just, as Josh was saying, unifying everything that the organization is doing, starting with the students for now and then expanding from there, but unifying on topics. So as Josh explained before, getting more of like a clinical background on a topic and discussing it from more like a medical field. And then with mentors, kind of continuing the conversation in a more casual setting that doesn't feel maybe as like information heavy, just like taking all the knowledge and goodies from Josh and then like, how do we distill it into like, okay, now we have an extra hour to like, how do we implement it into our lives? But I think, as Amanda was saying, just expanding the mentors to more company members is going to be even more fabulous to get different perspectives and different views and backgrounds of the different mentors, and then connecting every month with everyone to unify on our topics. And then we're going to continue our like check-ins with Denise and Peter. So if there are any issues that come up or topics that just need to be shifted in the school so that the students feel more supported, we're going to continue those as well. And so it just feels like this really unified program that just will hopefully support everyone. So not only us as the leaders of the program, we get to support each other in the topics, and then we get to support the school, and then we get to support the students. And it just feels like this wonderful circle of like, we're trying to help every single part of the organization. At least that's the goal.
Yeah, and it also makes me think about just being super intentional about this.
Yeah.
Right? Like this year, it kind of just happened, and it was this amazing, like fresh energy of being able to like start fresh and be able to kind of like zero into some of these topics. But I think now we get to be really intentional about how do we have the conversations? How do we talk about like, I don't know, body size, right? Or body shape, or like race with students, but also with teachers and also with the company, and really just being able to have these fresh, open conversations that will carry us as an organization, but also as individuals, because we're all learning from one another. And that's what I'm super excited, to have those conversations with all of you.
Maybe we can do a round of like, what do we see possible in the dance world?
Yeah.
With like, obviously what we're doing, obviously that's a possibility that we're nurturing and growing. But I can start us off while y'all think is, I really want to, knowing as a student how voiceless I felt, I was telling these two, like I've spent 10 years of my career like not having a voice at all, and in the last 2 years I feel like I've actually like grown into a place of comfort where I can be an advocate for myself and for others. And obviously I'm happy that I'm at that place now, but I want to give the power to students to have that like earlier on in their lives, to feel like they can advocate for themselves and how they want their career to be and how they feel. And if there's an injury, like advocate for yourself. Like don't just push through because you think you should. And that just goes for so many different, it's not just injuries. It's also like body. It's like dealing with stress and anxiety in school and homework and family stress. Like there are just so many different elements of it. So just normalizing those conversations of like, you can speak up for yourself and who you want to be. And we all have experiences, the three of us, in different elements of doing that, and just, kind of picking at it from different angles and just giving these students and the next generation of dancers or dance students that become something else in the future, like whatever path you want to take, that's amazing, and we're here to support you, and we want to empower you to be your best selves now and not wait however long. So that's what I would like.
Yes. Yeah. Amanda?
I would say, in a broader way in the dance world, I'm thinking in a broad term, but dance, a lot of times it becomes very individually like centered. We're thinking about our careers or what parts we're doing or who we're trying to impress at the front of the room. And it sometimes gets so disconnected, right? So we're trying to like connect all of these different aspects within an organization. And I think, at least like for me when I was a student, everything felt so just like all over the place, disconnected, especially like when you're a POC, you feel sometimes invisible. Like the fact that, like no one understands your perspective. They don't, they just don't get it. And so I'm hoping that like, it's particularly POC students can feel that they can talk more, about what they're experiencing if something comes up, that they have dancers in the company that they can talk to. They have people in the organization, they have faculty, they could talk to their director about it. I think that is a really, and then on top of that, just like making dance more community based, because dance like started in the community. It started in the streets. It did not start in, started in rooms in general. Dance at center connects people. So if we're going to be an organization that is a dance organization, I think that we need to continue to just keep thinking about our community, thinking about the people around us. And I think PNB is doing an excellent job of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think what I envision is really this well-rounded dancer who is able to access the full range of emotions, experiences, right? Be just equipped to face the challenges that may be in front of them, not just in the dance world, but also outside of the dance world. And I think really normalizing that mental health is just another part of taking care of oneself. And I think dancers are so trained in taking care of their bodies, but there's almost a disconnect in like taking care of our minds. And, old school thinking is a little bit like, oh, well, you're just weak if you can't, cut it. And I think I want to take the emphasis off of the individual and actually look at the structure and some of the pressures that are at play that's in the dance world, but also outside of the dance world, and recognize that, this is not a problem of an individual. Sometimes the struggle has to do with a system in place. And so being equipped to actually challenge some of that system, it takes a lot of new, fresh eyes, and it takes a lot of dancers like Cecilia, Cece has said, finding your voice. And then like Amanda has said, communicating that it's not okay and that we are going to unite and we are going to advocate for one another and we are going to collaborate with one another. And so just continuing to have conversations and being able to get it out in the open. I know I wish that I had that when I was growing up as a dancer, and I often think about not just a dancer, I guess as just a teenager, but I think and I reflect back, like, what would it be like now? Like, how would I have shown up? But also, I don't think I would have gone into this career that I'm in now if I would have just skipped over some of those learning opportunities. But I want to just like share that with all of our PNB dancers, but just in general, the PNB organization, and hopefully the dance world. So we can start saying like, hey, now is the time. Let's keep pushing the boundary.
Yeah, I think we are that shining light, hopefully, and that other companies and schools will see the benefits of the work that we're doing and just feel so honored to be part of this journey with the two of you and our growing team, and just grateful for Peter and Denise and everyone who has like helped us like run these programs and kind of run with our ideas. It's just really encouraging to be in an organization that allows us to explore in these amazing ways that hopefully will shift the dance world and at least PNB to start. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I feel fortunate to be having this conversation with the two of you. Like, I just so thankful for you both.
Yeah.
Same here.
Well, on that note, hope everyone has a wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. And thank you for joining us for the last 40 minutes.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.